You better hurry up. You're on deadline by noon tomorrow, and I'm not talking about your taxes. I'm talking about your brackets, the thing that all of America does. I love it when the office pools, for amusement only, of course, are passed around, and you know that one person in the office who doesn't pay any attention looks up the uniform colors and that likes the nicknames of the teams and fills out the bracket and wins the whole doggone thing. Well, so many of us, excuse me for readjusting, while so many of us spend so much time trying to figure out exactly how this whole thing is going to go. Well, for those of you who do that, I got Mark Dondero from Eyewitness News Sports and Bill Koch from the Providence Journal here tonight to bang it all out for you. So with no further ado, welcome into my state of mind. I am Dan York, and we go to our rundown so we can tackle a couple of issues here on the local level. We'll leave the world and Benjamin Netanyahu and his victory aside for tonight. We'll take a look at the Taylor Swift tax. That's what it's being called. That in of itself should tell you we got a problem. Pension progress as we head toward a big Monday vote. A little bit of teacher activism comes back to bite you in the you-know-whatsy. And this whole controversy in Cranston over Working Good Friday is ironic, to say the least. Of course, we'd like to hear what you think on your state of mind. So let us dig into the broadcast and issue number one, the Taylor Swift tax. The idea that it's being called the Taylor Swift tax by most now is, I think, is problematic as any. Here's the headline and the picture of Taylor Swift's house, the second home tax. This is part of Gina Raimondo's budget. We talked about it with Joe Camarano from PC last night. He didn't think it was such a big deal, and the governor doesn't either. I guess the net revenue from this is about $11.8 million projected over 2,400 homes. You know, I think it's a good idea that we put Rhode Island in a competitive position against Connecticut and Massachusetts in every way we can. The guy who runs the Realtors Group here in Rhode Island was on WPRO today, and he kind of concurs that this is not competitive.
We're at a point where the local housing market in Rhode Island, we're starting to do well. We're doing well. Why? Why would we want to interrupt that pattern? Because as soon as our local economy, housing does well, the local economy does well. It kind of follows suit hand in hand. So I don't touching any tax on this. And then even more important is look at our neighboring states. Connecticut and Massachusetts don't do this. If they don't do it, why should we be doing it? Because all we're doing is giving people the reason to buy elsewhere.
So the governor's thought is, well, listen, people of means who can buy a $5 million home, by the way, the tax starts at $1 million in value for your home that you don't occupy. In other words, second property, rental property, vacation property. Her point is, if you can afford, you know, that kind of a home, you can afford the tax. It's no big deal. I don't know. The governor's a person of means. But most people I know who are of means count their pennies even more, because you know what? That's how they got to means. We'll see. It's a proposal, just that. Let's move on to the next item here. Pension progress. Yes, we've got a settlement headed toward Monday, at least for a vote. Unions are starting to file in and make their voices known, leadership anyway. Eyewitness News has this summary.
It comes down to this, a proposed settlement that could save the state and 205 plaintiffs from going to court next month. The plaintiffs argue the 2011 pension law that saves Rhode Island taxpayers $4 billion is unconstitutional.
The settlement on the right terms would be a great thing for the state, would provide closure.
The state tried to settle this lawsuit last spring. We're being told new in this proposal, there's a change to the retirement age and cost of living adjustment. If the unions and retirees approve the new settlement, it goes to a judge before state lawmakers have the final say.
It's very expensive, very difficult lawsuit.
Michael Downey is the president of Rhode Island Council 94. Downey's executive board voted unanimously to push the agreement to their some 60,000 members for a final vote.
So the big day is Monday, and it's all been brought together by this man, whose photo we showed you yesterday. There's Frank Williams, the special master, used to be the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Settling this thing does not answer the constitutional question as to whether the legislature has the power to do it. That's a broken record statement from me. I think it's short-sighted. Trial date's April 20th. We've come this far. But so much litigation always gets settled right before D-Day, trial day, T-Day, if you will. And the big pictures often are discarded. We'll see. You never know until it's over. It almost got done last time, and one union, one small union out of the many opted out. Next item, teacher activism. Yeah, this is interesting. Remember the protest? The kids were protesting the park test, and boy, we've had some incredible conversation on the radio about the park test, and parents all worried about their kids being stressed, and then of course there's security issues with the test, and there's the platform for the test, and the computer, and the written, and this and that. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on, and Common Core, which is associated with it, which is controversial in and of itself. But look, right now, we've got a gutting of the system going on. This is the week that the park tests have been issued. It's 9 hours worth of work per student, per class, over the course of the week, broken up the way the school system, I guess, wants it to be broken up. But, you know, they had a little situation in Pawtucket with this teacher who was suspended, and those kids were protesting the teacher suspension. And he more or less has kind of told the media quietly that he didn't do anything. You know, he was just telling the kids what the facts were, and that they didn't have to worry about losing funding, and that they had that he had no real position on whether they should take the test or not. Here's the Valley Breeze story that you have to take a look at. See that young man kind of active there in front of the protest? That is the teacher's son. And if you look through the story, you find out that the superintendent and the principal in Pawtucket for this particular school had long conversations with this teacher about his activism, and according to them, it went just a little bit too far. So good for the Valley Breeze to write that story. And what's the moral of it? Teachers are there to teach. Teachers whose opinions impact the decisions of parents via students when it comes to processes in education probably are playing with fire. And he did. And hopefully he's learned his lesson. My guess is most likely not, because once teachers get in this mindset, well, anyway. Working Good Friday. Speaking of teachers and mindsets, this is a good one. This is a classic. So you saw the original story that the teacher union sues over Good Friday. Well, that may have rattled some, but not the folks at the Cranston school system who came up with a response in the Providence Journal today. School officials defend the Good Friday decision. So school will be on in Cranston. The way this happened was, I guess last year when they were looking at the schedule, they said, look, we can't bust up the early portion of the fall with Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Jewish important holy days, right? So they said, well, if we go to school for those two, we got to go to school for Good Friday because we can't put Christians over Jews. I think majority rules. There are a lot more people that are observing Good Friday than are the Jewish holidays, and there are religious exemptions for the teachers, both in Cranston, both for the Jewish and Christian holidays anyway. But here's how it turned out. The Jewish holidays are observed with services during the day, and so you can't work when you're observing. Good Friday, you can go to service at night. So they said, you got to come to school. Okay, it's kind of a holiday mess. But here's the irony. The Teachers Union in Cranston says some 200 teachers applied for religious day off, and they've been denied, and they're all fit to be tied. My question is, how many of those teachers are going to end up at church or at the mall? I mean, I've long opined that Good Friday has been lost. The meaning of it and the most solemnity aspect of it is completely oblivious to most people who take advantage of the 3-day weekend. Crazy. All right, your state of mind. 228-1886, email, Facebook post, tweet, all of that. Here's a tweet or a post or the tweet, yes. God forbid we give our kids the opportunity to actually do well on something hard. Opt out is a mistake and it hurts kids. Erica, well said. You may have disagreements with the way that park test is going. I might too. But you don't pull your kids out to win the battle. Simple concept. When we come back, we break out the brackets, we talk local basketball, and we get some advice on how you can win your amusement-only pool, of course. All right, so you saw the headline, and you've been watching, right, all the good news when it comes to PC. They are in the show, so to speak. And It's a good thing. It's exciting for basketball fans. Of course, URI is not in the show, but they're in their own show, which is still a legitimate show. Hopefully this one is. Bill Koch from the Providence Journal, Mark Dondero from Eyewitness Sports. Gentlemen, thank you.
Good to see you, Dan.
My annual
Pleasure.
review of the brackets, almost as important on deadline as tax day, right?
That's right.
Noontime
No question.
tomorrow, it's got to be filed.
I would say thanks for having me back. I obviously wasn't that bad last year with Coach Walsh.
But I don't remember how you did. Actually, you do very well within your
probably not well.
journalistic. You sports writers have your own little thing that you guys do, right? You're kind of on the QT.
Conference
Yeah.
tournament pool, yes.
Yes. So
Not to be spoken of.
I think I violated some kind of thing here.
It's okay.
Before we get to the brackets, overall reaction to a basketball season that has been pretty cool, huh?
It's been great. Providence, they get back in the tournament. First time back in the tournament in back-to-back years since when? You could tell me better.
1989,
1989-90. They haven't won since 97, so that's good for them. And obviously the big step that URI made. They didn't make the big dance, obviously, but what a great season they had in the NIT. And if I know a lot of teams, when they get into the NIT, they're disappointed. But if I'm URI, I'm ecstatic, and this is a great chance to get some tournament experience. I know it's not the dance,
Right.
but it's still a tournament.
Well, and it's an important tournament. Here's some of the action I think from last night. Iona and Rhode Island. Iona, a team that won some 26 games before they came in last night, and actually URI, after the first few minutes, controlled the entire game. And to that idea of motivation, Bill, I mean, that's a big point that you've made when it comes to this NIT tournament. So let's get that conversation up and out of the way. It is an important tournament. I think on a prorated basis, the level of skill across the board in the NIT is actually better than the NCAA because of all the one-bid lower-tier teams that get to the big show based on that whole composite, right?
And when you have a young team who's in the ascendancy as opposed to a team full of seniors who missed the NCAA tournament, big difference in mindsets. The young team wants to get some experience. They want to continue to play. They want to continue to practice. The older guys look at it as an unwelcome consolation. They're very disappointed.
Right.
Rhode Island obviously falls into the first category right now, starting their 2 freshmen and 2 sophomores.
So now that they've won, they go to Stanford, and it was a little bit of confusion because Stanford is hosting
The women's
regional.
NCAAs this weekend, but they managed to find a date. The game's going to be on Sunday. The time is still to be determined. But obviously you've got a historical matchup there, a rematch of the 1998 Elite Eight, which Rhode Island lost to Stanford. Any Rhode Island fan could tell you the particulars of those if they care to relive them.
The cool thing about the NIT is that you go to New York at the Final Four, and you know it's a big deal when you get there, right? It's a big to do.
Oh,
You'll
wait.
follow. You'll go.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, New York, too. We heard it during the tournament, the Big East tournament and the A-10 tournament. There's just something more exciting about playing in New York. So even if it is the NIT, like I said, though, what's most important is that this team, New York is fine and nice. This team is trying to, continue to build and get to that next level, and a good experience in this tournament, I think, will help them next year.
My alma mater, Dayton, which seems to be in the mix in all this local stuff this year,
Oh, they're right in the middle.
won the NIT, and the next year went to the show. So it's a big stepping stone. It's a big deal, right?
That's the idea.
PC, big opportunity here to make some noise. A lot of you pundits are feeling really good about PC's chances to move forward in this tournament because my alma mater might be, if they win tonight in a play-in game, might be the end of that conversation. Who knows? But
Well, what wins in the tournament? Guard play and pros. Providence has one, all wrapped up into one player, Chris Dunn, who's going to be one of the best players in the field. This is a great opportunity for him to go out and show himself, and I have Providence playing into the second weekend.
second weekend, meaning the regionals.
Yes.
Meaning winning twice in
Yes.
Columbus.
Just to kind of piggyback on what Bill said, in basketball, in my opinion, when you have the best player on the floor, I think that goes a long way and further than in any other sport. So having Chris Dunn, I just watched Dayton play. I know Bill did. Good team. They beat URI, but Providence looked like a better team, to be honest, than Villanova at times in that game. I think that they'll be able to, whether it's I know we're kind of dismissing Boise State, but
And we shouldn't.
I think
But-
that they're going to have a good chance. I didn't have them going. I don't know if I had them into the I had them winning 2 games, that into the second. So there you go.
Yes.
There you go. Providence going into the second weekend. Let's go.
Well, so talking about PC exclusively, what would be defined as success?
Well, at this point, you haven't won a tournament game since 1997, so winning one is another step for them. But I know that Ed Cooley thinks bigger than that. He's always talked about wanting to be relevant on the national scene. In order to do that, you have to play in the Sweet 16, have to get into the second weekend of the tournament, because that helps raise your profile everywhere, whether it be in recruiting, with your alumni, with your donations. It's all part of feeding the beast.
And there's a big financial aspect to this as well,
Huge.
correct?
Huge.
What kind of money are we talking about?
Millions.
Millions.
Many millions.
With each victory?
The television contract spread over 4 networks now is worth $11 billion over a period of years. That money trickles down to the schools. The more you win, the more you're on TV, the more you collect.
What do you think is a success marker for PC?
They have to win a game. I think
Just one.
I mean, obviously you want to win more than that, but if we're talking about taking steps, winning one game, look, the program's already going in the right direction. Danny Ainge was at practice the other day. Just to have that video out there, to hear, to boast stuff like that. You got pros, you know, Bryce Cotton, he's not playing in the NBA on a regular basis, but he put them on a nice pedestal last year with that game against North Carolina. People were tweeting about the game he had. Now Providence is back in the tournament. It's all trending in the right direction for Ed Cooley.
A 10 o'clock game on Friday night. That's late.
It stinks.
It's not that late.
It's not that late.
It's a Friday
It
night.
stinks. It
It
stinks for
stinks.
you
It
because you got
stinks.
11 o'clock newscast.
Right. So they're going to be playing while we're on the air. You know, maybe if I'm a player, it's a great thing, prime time or whatever. But for me, selfishly, boo-hoo.
I'll be watching.
When we come back, we'll break it all out. Stay with us. All righty, there's Cooley and company, all excited when they got the confirmation. Of course, they knew they were going to the NCAA tournament based on their season performance. Let's break down the regions with Messrs. Koch and Dondero here. Let's go to the East region. Although we're not going to be able to get to every particular game, we should at least work through it a little bit. Where are you guys? Who are the sleepers and who are the absolutes in the East region?
Well, I'll just say I have Virginia going to the Final Four. This region, I just don't feel good about. I don't feel good about my entire bracket, to be honest with you. I think it stinks right now. But
what do you mean?
I just don't feel good. I look at it. I looked at some of the matchups. First of all, I have. Well, we'll get into it later, but it just feels dirty to me. Based on the teams I've picked. But
dirty?
Yeah, Kentucky, Duke in the final, that's dirty. Like, Kentucky, I just don't like picking those teams. But here's the thing. I get too cute too many times with this bracket, so this time I was like,
I'm picking the chalk.
I'm going to pick more favorites and go that way. So that's what I did.
Right, so
I have
you like
Virginia
Virginia.
coming out of the East. I have Providence winning 2 games, and I don't buy Villanova.
I'm with Mark 100%. I have Virginia winning that region. I really struggled with it, though, because a lot of these teams are very flawed. Virginia, Michigan State would be a great rematch from last year. They played a great game at Madison Square Garden. Northern Iowa could be a sleeper, a very good team, the 5 seed in that region. But that being said, I have them going out to Louisville, who I have knocking off Villanova. They can't score. They turn it over way too much. But Pitino has been in this situation way too many times. And in any given game, he's going to have 2 of the best players on the floor, Montrezl Harrell and Terry Rozier.
Okay, so let's go to the dirty Midwest region. It must be dirty according to Dondero here because you don't like Kentucky. You just don't like them. This is a 40-0 mission that they're on.
Let me tell you this. I am rooting for them, in a way, to go undefeated. I'd like to see it happen. So that's not why it's dirty. It's just dirty, in my opinion, because I can't boast about any nice upset or picking that team that really made the run. So picking Kentucky and Duke is just, 2 heavy favorites, blah, blah, blah. I'll tell you what I'm most excited about in this Midwest region, okay? Wichita State and Kansas. Apparently, Kansas never wants to play Wichita State. Is that right?
They have ducked Wichita State since 1993. Have not played since then. If those 2 teams take care of business, Wichita State beating Indiana and
In the
Kansas
first
beating
round.
New Mexico State, they will meet in Omaha, and you will have a ton of Kansans making that trip.
I want to see that game played, and I will root hard for Wichita State. I picked them to win because I'm rooting for them in that game.
Wichita State is a perennial player. I mean, they've been there. I mean, they went to the Final Four 2 years ago, right?
They are very good. They played what I like to think was really the national championship game last year against Kentucky. I know UConn beat Kentucky in the finals, but the best game of that tournament for me was Wichita and Kentucky in the round of 32.
Great game.
And I think we're going to see it again in that regional final. I have Wichita State knocking off Kansas and then knocking off Notre Dame. Another storyline to watch in that region is Buffalo with Bobby Hurley playing a West Virginia team that was 9-8 in their last 17. Their best player, Jawan Staten, is battling a knee injury. I have Buffalo winning 2 games and facing Kentucky.
That drives Danny crazy. He'll be proud of his brother, but that drives Danny crazy. All right, let's go to the West region, if we can, Laura. Thank you. Mr. Koch.
Fantastic region. I think you have 2 of the best teams in the whole field in Wisconsin and Arizona, and I think it's a shame that one of them isn't going to reach the Final Four. They played, obviously, in a regional final last year, an overtime game that Wisconsin won. And this year I have Arizona getting revenge and going to the Final Four. I think they're outstanding on both sides of the ball. They have pros, they have size, they have a fifth-year point guard in T.J. McConnell. Just a really, really good team.
Mark?
I have Wisconsin. This wasn't one of my favorite regions. Nothing really screamed at me when I looked at the paper in this region. And again, I like Arizona too. I have Arizona and Wisconsin in that, what is that, the Elite Eight there, Wisconsin winning. I know Bo Ryan is a great coach, and it really doesn't go beyond that. I just think Wisconsin is good, except they've lost some big games this year, though. They've lost to Duke. So I question when they get where the big boys will be in the Final Four if they can get it done, but I have them going. Again, this was mainly favorites for me this year.
Final region is the South region, and it's got that Duke team in it as the #1 seed. Do they go the whole way, Bill?
I have them going to the Final Four and going to the national championship game, and I hope that this isn't one of those years where they lose to Mercer or Lehigh or VCU, because they do throw in a clunker from time to time. But they have a great backcourt. They have Quinn Cook. Jahlil Okafor is probably going to be the #1 pick in the draft, the big guy in the middle of freshmen. Just outstanding talent for Duke, and just enough veterans to get them there.
Duke, yeah, I have Duke winning this. Their depth worries me a little bit, but how does Duke get into this region? You know what I mean? Duke gets a pass. It just feels like, they win that first game, they get San Diego, who can't shoot that well, or St. John's, who has that guy with the short shorts, Beckbo,
suspended.
He was suspended, so they could get a guy with one of their big suspended. And then after that, I like SMU also to make a run. This is where my sleeper lies. SMU, Larry Brown. I have them making a little run into the Elite Eight, and then Duke coming out of that.
Another game to watch in that region, Georgetown against Eastern Washington. Georgetown made the Final Four in 2007. In their 5 appearances since then in the NCAAs, they've lost to a double-digit seed every single time.
Well, everyone's looking for that 5-12, 4-13, maybe even 3-14 upset. That sticks out to you. You've already expressed yours. Is there another big, point-scoring upset that will cause a bracket victory?
Let me just jump onto what Bill said. Eastern Washington, they have that kid, Harvey, is that his name?
Tyler Harvey, the leading scorer in the nation.
One of the best players that nobody's kind of talking about. And I don't know about, Georgetown. I think they're a little, 4 seed seems high to me for Georgetown, so I don't know.
Anybody else, sleeper-wise, real quick?
One other 5-12. I've Wofford over Arkansas. Veteran, experienced team. Carl Cochran has taken the most 3-pointers in the field.
So here's the big question. Is this a tournament for second place?
Absolutely. Kentucky's going to go 40-0 and win the national championship. I don't know if I've ever seen a team with that much pro talent.
If Kentucky were to play the New York Knicks, the Knicks would be favored by 15 points. I thought that was interesting. So they're a good team. They're not quite an NBA team, but they're going to win the tournament and go undefeated. Cal.
Get your brackets in by noon tomorrow, fellas. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
One more word and we come back to it. I think if you take Kentucky out, you do it at your peril. But if you take them out and they win, if you take them out and they lose, you could be in the for amusement only money. See you tomorrow on the radio at noon on WPR.